People are wondering how long it's going to take for this Eskom board to be appointed. Mr. Pravin Gordhan yesterday just saying that the government will now be in consultation. But my colleague, fellow eNCA and reporter Heidi Giokos has also been tracking the story of the Eskom board this afternoon, and she's back with me here in the studio. Welcome back, Heidi. Thank you very much for coming in. Yeah, we're all seized with this Eskom board matter. The NUM, they're in the bite we've just played, saying yes, they welcome the move to reconstitute the board. But the minister himself has to go, and there are other views that say as well, like Pule Mabe speaking earlier here on eNCA, saying the executive must also be held to account. But it's time to change something. The Eskom board is a big question, but will it actually make a difference?
Yes, exactly. And I think that's the key question here is, with the new board, will there be an end to load shedding? And I think that's basically what South Africans want to know. Is there going to be a difference in our load shedding schedule? And will we still have to be looking at a load shedding schedule? But there's a lot of pressure for government to, of course, appoint a new board. According to the Department of Public Enterprises, that will happen in due course. Who it's going to be and whether or not anybody is really going to pick up their hands and say, I'm willing to be on the Eskom board is basically a wait-and-see game. But I think what's crucial here is for us to understand the fact that an Eskom board consists of about 15 board members, and currently we only had, I can't say have, we only had 8
yes,
board members.
Yes, until yesterday we had 8.
Yes, and that's alarming because 7 board members resigned in April 2018 and they were never replaced. And that just goes to show, and perhaps that's a hidden message to say, or a red flag to say, perhaps they just cannot find the right people to sit on the board, or people are not opting to sit on that Eskom board. We spoke to independent analyst Kai Sithole, who said that government, of course, needs to have acted then when board members resigned and not only act now to appoint a new board for Eskom. Let's listen to what he told us earlier.
So we need a board with a solid business experience, which can oversee and steer the organization in the right direction. But also what will be important of that a board is to make sure that the execution of the plans in place, we believe, for instance, the plan announced by the president will go a long way to resolving some of these issues. So we need a board which will make sure that it steers the organization in that direction, and it also ensures that there is execution.
Yeah, that's the energy expert, the Fanele Mondi. Now, the question you are raising is very valid. Is that if for 4 years you could not replace 7 members who resigned in April 2018, and now you're getting rid of the 8, now you're going to reconstitute the board, are you still targeting 15 members or not? Will you be able to find the right people? I guess the question is there anybody out there who can say now, government, tumamina to Eskom, to the board, and I'm going to make sure that I help and I do my part?
Yes, and I think another big elephant in the room that perhaps many don't want to talk about, but the writing is on the wall, is the fact that there's political interference, whether we want to accept that or not. We've seen that with a number of boards. We've even seen that with a national carrier, with SAA, where there was serious political interference, and perhaps this is also at play here. What's interesting is that we had spoken to the national spokesperson of the ANC, Pule Mabe, earlier today, and he said that the board needs to do its job, but executives also need to do their job. But the question here is, will there be political interference, and who wants to be embroiled in all of that? Will the Eskom board, as well as its executives, be allowed to fulfill their duties and try and sort Eskom out? Eskom is already struggling to find skilled engineers to try and sort out the energy crisis that we face in this country. So how are they going to be able to find the right kind of people that can stand up in a board meeting and say, this is political interference, allow the board to do its job? So I think that is going to also be a huge challenge. And maybe this is also why their term was extended. The previous board's term was extended. I think their term ended last year, but it was extended. And perhaps it's because they don't know who they're going to replace the current board with, or the previous board with a
or the possible targeted candidates are turning government down to say, this is too big for me, I don't need this stress in my life.
Yes, and if you look at what's happening at SAA, if I'm not mistaken, Brian, I don't know how many board members are on SAA board, but it's not a full board. So is this what's going to happen moving forward with SOEs? But earlier on I said it was Kai Sithole, but that was not Kai Sithole. Let's listen to what Kai Sithole had to tell us now.
It's quite important for us to sort of take a step back and remember where we are. So you remember at the beginning of 2018, what made up the current board was actually put together under duress because Cyril Ramaphosa had just emerged as a victor in Nasrec and he was heading off to Davos to lead the South African delegation. And what they then said to President Jacob Zuma was the fact that they were not going to leave for Davos until there was a new board at Eskom that would lend credibility to the idea that South Africa was fixing not only the corruption crisis but also the electricity generation crisis. So this board that was 15 members back then was put together under those particular conditions. The importance of that particular time frame is that at that point in time, Cyril Ramaphosa was still intimately involved in the deployment committee of the ANC, which as we now know is where things go to die or where things go to be revived. So because he had that ability to influence the deployment committee, it was easy for him to simply say, these are the 13 names that I want on this particular board, and we made it happen. Unfortunately, that board then has been decimated ever since 2018, and we're now left with just 7 of those members. And the key problem here is that obviously, if Ramaphosa himself had been aware that the board that he put together is no longer fully capacitated, the question is, why would you wait until now in order to say, oh, by the way, we're putting together a new board? So this announcement by the Department of Public Enterprises isn't the Department of Public Enterprises championing governance. It is them responding to the escalation in stage 6 load shedding that we saw last week and the questions that have been raised about how seriously government takes the issue of Eskom if they can't even be bothered to put together board members that are supposed to oversee that organization. So it's all too reactionary, unfortunately.